for non-attendance. I will put the apologies in for Councillor Barrett. She's on holiday. Anybody else? Do we know of? Wendy Sutton, do we know? So apologies for Councillor Sutton. Okay. Nobody else. All right. Thanks ever so much. Thank you, Sue. Thank you. Cheers. Right. Item 3, looking at the agenda, declarations of interest. To receive the declarations of interest. Anyone would wish to declare? You're fine. Okay. So I'm now going to move on to item 4, which is cross-border health. It's a presentation from Health Watch Staffordshire Manager and Councillor Paul Harrison. Thank you. Okay, both.
Thanks very much, Chair.
No, thank you.
I think that mine. On behalf of Health Watch colleagues,
yes,
so we'll certainly want to chip in.
Of course, it'll be interesting. Good.
Stuck with me over the years, so I apologise about turning one off. So yeah, this is around possible NHS care. Some work that we do with Health Watch. It's been mentioned previously, and really we've just got a few slides here just to run through what we've been doing so far and the nature of the issue, just sort of nitty some understanding of what's going on. So that's not a great surprise to anyone in this room, I suspect. We know some personal experience with relatives, hearsay as it were, and it is, has always been, a little bit of a problem. The southern end of our district, where obviously I represent a chunk of, the peninsula bit of South Staffordshire, is closer to many services in other counties and boroughs compared to Staffordshire-based services. This inevitably leads to some issues with access to healthcare in general. People may not be aware of how geographically organised mental health services are, but they are much more geographically organised than physical healthcare services. So we will be aware that pretty much you get the physical problem, appendicitis, heart attack, stroke, whatever, you're going to end up going to the nearest hospital, so you'll get sorted out there. There aren't really any issues about whether you come across the border or whatever. Whilst that's partly true for mental health care, a lot of mental health care is driven and delivered much more on a geographical basis. And that's partly because their teams won't not set up to cross borders and work outside their borders. Obviously, there tends to be a lot more, this is an old expression that we've heard of, care in the community with mental health care than there is with physical health care, where you can go to your outpatients, you can go get an operation and you're kind of done for the most part. So for mental health, cross-border working is much more of a problem, especially when you've got the kind of geographical issues that we have in that peninsula of South Staffordshire. Although we're right at the end of it in Kinder, obviously it also affects other parts of South Staffs, you know, all the way up to Wombourne and so on, and a bit further north, where the actual places of South Staffordshire, but they would look to probably the West Midlands, or in our case, sometimes Worcestershire, for some of the healthcare services. So pretty much as soon as the elections in last May were over, we started getting contacted by residents raising various issues around healthcare access. Some of them were about physical health issues, but a lot of them were around mental health issues, and in particular around dementia issues and access to services and problems they've been having. That's kind of the background to the work that we've been doing. And you can see from that slide, really, excuse me, I don't have a laser pointer, but we're really talking about the major problem being in this bit of the district. Cross-border working is a problem everywhere. So wherever you are in the district, there'll be a little bit of an issue about this for certain specialist services and so on, but it's particularly a problem there. So we've had patients having to travel from here in the for mental health services. That takes probably around 3 hours by public transport, and that's only available for certain times of the day, because we have about 5 buses a day to Kinder going to Stourbridge, and you'd have to make about 3 or 4 changes on trains and buses to get there. And obviously that's bad enough for someone with physical or mental health problems to endure that. And essentially it's a whole day, and you'll only make your appointment if it happens to be towards the middle of the day, because otherwise you won't have time to get there. So that's kind of a bit worse end of the spectrum, I would suggest, you the sort of problems we've been putting up with. Obviously, you'll realise from the map that Wolverhampton and Dudley are all a lot closer to the peninsula, and they all have mental health services that are provided within those boundaries, which are a lot closer to access for patients, people living down in the peninsula part of the district. There's another problem in that the postcodes for the southern half of our district aren't Staffordshire postcodes, they're Dudley postcodes. So I live in DY7 in Staffordshire. That causes a problem because sometimes people don't realise in healthcare situations that they're dealing with someone who's from a different county, and that has led to problems further on during the referral pathway, where people have suddenly said, "Oh, hang on a minute, we thought you were in Dudley, but actually you're in South Staffs." So what have we been doing? So the first thing to acknowledge absolutely is the support we've had for our chair and from Mark to look into this as an issue. That's been very helpful, and that's allowed us to take this problem up to the Staffordshire County Council Health and Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee. That's important because, as we have mentioned at this committee before, NHS care is really the preserve of the county council, not the district councils, and that is obviously a cause of frustration when we've talked about various things here, like GP access, for example. So it's important to involve Councillor Peter Burt, who was in fact very helpful. He got me involved with Health Watch, who likewise have been extremely helpful and positive on this. So we wouldn't be where we are thus far without that support, both from our chair here, officers here, and the county council. So we're talking with Health Watch. We've been batting this problem backwards and forwards for a few months now. We have made a little bit of progress. So what we've found out is that what's called integrated care board, so that's kind of how health services are run nowadays, if people aren't really familiar with that. So they're responsible for commissioning, buying and setting up healthcare services within the NHS. So we have the Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent Integrated Healthcare Integrated Care Board, who are responsible for commissioning mental health services and everything else that we have. So we've had some preliminary correspondence with the significant help and support of Health Watch, who did us in. And we found out that we have got some already existing agreements, and I'll come back to that in a second around possible working. From the patients and residents' perspective, they are struggling to get appointments for mental health services, and that's right the way through the pathway from having difficulty getting to see their GP in the first place, which won't be a surprise to any members in this room, I'm sure, being referred to the right and appropriate NHS organisation. The whole thing is problematic for some people. Sometimes it works fine, so I'm not trying to paint a picture that it's a complete disaster, but it goes wrong enough times for it to be a problem. Obviously, mental health services, in common with physical health services, are suffering from long waits and delays. So I think mental health services in Dudley are currently quoting 34 weeks before you will begin to get put on the list to be seen for memory clinics, i.e. dementia services. That's quite a long wait, especially if it's taking you several months to go through all the loops to actually get the referral. Public transport I've kind of touched upon already, but there's no doubt in the fact that a lot of the South Staffs is kind of fairly rural or semi-rural, plays into that as a problem. We've got places in our parts of the district where you cannot actually drive anywhere else in Staffordshire without going through another county. It's just not connected. So getting around can be really problematic, especially for those who don't have their own car or ability to drive. We also touched on this, the distance to mental health trusts, bases of operations is problematic. Further down the leg of the peninsula of South Staffordshire, the worse that is. And the system tends to be hard to navigate. The healthcare system's always hard to navigate. I've worked in it for 35 years and I don't really know how to navigate it as well as some people do. It's not easy. And of course, we've got an aging population in South Staffs. That's a problem for certain services more than others. So dementia services, as you might imagine, are particularly called upon with an aging population. And of course, the cost of living crisis, which impacts on people's ability to cope, and also adds stress to people, which again can lead to mental health problems and needing support for that. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have found out that there are some commissioning arrangements in place for non-Staffordshire, or sorry, not just non-Staffordshire, yeah, for non-Staffordshire NHS services to actually see our patients. So the commissioners have set up something in place so that in theory, patients in that leg coming down or anywhere else in Staffordshire could use some of the resources and services in the Black Country, for example, Southampton, Black Country. However, we're not really clear at this point exactly what services are covered by that. But they've also pointed out, this is from the commissioners, that they've seen a decline in the number of patients using those cross-border services, which is odd because I don't think the demand for those services is going down. And colleagues from Health Watch, I think, will agree that we don't really know why that is. As I say, I don't think there's been a drop in demand. There is a question about whether clinicians who are making the referrals know that they can use that route to get someone into a place that's closer to them or not. And we know that occasionally, for sure, there is a problem where someone's referred via that route, but they are turned away by the NHS organisation because they think they're not supposed to be treating them because they're outside their area. Again, it's a problem that's really limited to mental health services. I've concentrated on mental health services, but my colleagues from Health Watch may well mention that there are issues for other services as well. So I think orthotics was an area where there have been some problems again around this cross-border working and access to.
And the GPs in Kimber in primary care network group that's doubly based, not Staffordshire based.
Yeah, absolutely.
The GPs actually relate to Dudley, not to Staffordshire.
Absolutely, and the practice that looks after most people in Kimber, just to explain to people, it has two premises. One's within Dudley, West Midlands, and the other one is in Kimber. So their patients come from two different catchment populations. Of course, it's the same practice, it's the same doctors, and patients from Kimber will go into the West Midlands and vice versa sometimes to get seen. But that just adds to the layer of confusion. Absolutely. So we think there are a few other issues as well. This one is pretty self-evident, but if someone has a mental health crisis, you'd be aware sometimes that involves, even still these days, sometimes the police coming out, certainly ambulance services, and people are often still end up going to the nearest A&E department to get sorted out as a place of safety, if not just anything else, which is fair enough because that's the primary concern, is you've got to make the situation safe. The problem with that is it means that they're then followed up, potentially followed up, by a completely different set of people than those who've seen them to start with. So that adds problems about continuity of care for those patients who probably most need continuity of care and being looked at. We already talked about this in terms of the workload of providers, problematic for all pretty much. But we're also aware that, of course, CQC, Care Quality Commission, one of the, I think it was 23 regulators last time I counted, of NHS organisations. So there's a lot of regulators, I think. But CQC is the one you hear about on the news. Has already told one of our local providers that they need to improve. The issue with instructions that they have to improve. So all this is against the background of services that are struggling anyway.
Midlands Partnership Foundation just a building a new crisis and 12 centre which will accommodate the section 136 patients that's due to open in Stafford in October. I understand.
Probably need to explain what section 136 is.
Colleagues over here probably can explain it better than me because they have to operate it.
Yeah. Section 136 of the basically gives police officers power to detain someone in event of crisis in a public place. So if we had somebody on a bridge who was in crisis, threatening to pocket and cause themselves harm, we can actually under that power physically detain them and remove them to a place of safety, even if they were to put a force against that action. It's for their own safety.
Which is great. It comes back to that point I made earlier, that if they end up going to Stafford, which is where the new facility would be built, it's virtually impossible for people to visit them or for them to get back into the boards from Stafford to Edinburgh in any way, shape or form. So what are we doing next? So we're going to have further discussions with the Integrated Care Board because we need to understand a little bit more about what's going on and why this is a problem. So we don't know for sure yet exactly what services are covered by the cross-boundary agreements that are in place. It clearly isn't everything, and it's clearly not working, but we don't know the scope of that. And clearly from the discussions we've already had, the commissioners don't think it's working either. So this needs work. So that I've mentioned. And then really we should be in a position to better influence the discussions on the commission of these services and how decisions on those services are made. I think it's something that we haven't really had that much of a voice in before. I would have to say that mental health is often the Cinderella. And I have a medical background, but I wasn't in mental health at all. I was in physical health, so I can't claim to be an expert on this. It's always been a bit of a Cinderella and tended to be at the back of the list of things to do. I think there's an element of that that's gone on here, if I'm brutally honest, maybe being a little bit unfair, because I'm sure a lot of professionals involved really want it all to work. But the upshot is it hasn't necessarily been top of the priorities. And what we really need to do as well, apart from just talking to the ICB, is to gather more experiences of patients accessing or trying to access mental health services. So I've got contact with patient participation group in Kinder, so they're feeding information to me. What I would say, and I know my colleagues in Health Watch would endorse this completely, is what we really need to do is get any other information, any stories that members have here, feed those into us as well, because that just adds to give us a better picture of exactly what's going on and how big the problem is. We know there's a problem, there's no doubt about that. I think we're at a point now where the commissioners think there's a problem. I think Health Watch really think there's a problem. So I think we're making progress, because the first stage of getting anything sorted out is to get people to recognise that there's something that needs sorting out in the first place.
MPFT have recently appointed a director of patient experience as well. So we've got their communications with them as well, haven't we? So it's pretty high on their agenda to listen to patients and try and do something about it. But they are struggling to recruit and retain mental health trained staff. And I think through the mental health transformation funds in recent times, the voluntary sector have taken up quite a lot of the slack in that through various schemes. So that there are voluntary sector staff now working alongside the mental health teams in the community. People like mine, Changes, the name CAB, to name but a few. So things are changing, and there has been quite a lot of investment in community health services. But again, when you get to the extremities of the county, it starts to get difficult.
And I'll emphasise the final thing I'll say, I promise, and then I'll shut up. That's in the last question. Is I'll emphasise this isn't just people with mental health, severe mental health problems such as schizophrenia and things like that. This is people with dementia, memory loss, memory impairment, and all sorts of other less serious conditions, and ones that could potentially be treated and people given help for relatively easily in the community or close to their homes. And at the moment, that's just not working very well. I suspect you're aware of issues around dementia care and dementia support in the.
Yes.
So that's it. That's where we are so far.
Okay.
It will take time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. That was really interesting, and thank you for putting that together, all three of you. We do appreciate it. And you mentioned that you were in touch with the Kinver patient participation group. Have you been in touch with any other practices in South Staffordshire?
I haven't, because I'm wary of treading on other members' patches.
Right.
Because
But
we only really have essentially one practice in.
So I'm going to put the question to Mark, how we would do this. So whether do we do it through district, or how would we deal with this one, Mark?
Yeah, and whether it's something colleagues at Health Watch can support us with, if they've got those direct contacts with the individual PPGs. Historically, they used to be a season-wide PPG where those practices all came together, but I'm not sure if that's still in existence now, Baz, whether it be via a PCN route or going directly to the individual practices for that feedback.
The integrated care board, something called a patient assembly, and as part of that, they've just written out to all PPGs to invite them to join Staffordshire-wide PPG's network, and they've actually got the first meeting on the 6th of May. So there is some progress being made. I'm not sure how many PPGs have joined up to it yet. We'll find out, I guess, in May. But also within Support Staffordshire, we've got somebody that's doing research, health-related research, and she's trying to contact with PPGs at the minute to involve them more. Because there's more and more health research going on that's involving patients, giving them opportunities to be involved in that. So we've got a few routes into it, and I think the other thing that I'm a little bit worried about, social prescribing is available in practices, but I read somewhere that social prescribers in part of your area, I think, are under the PCN, the Studley based, and that they had suspended new referrals to the social prescribers. A lot of the social prescribers in Staffordshire are employed by Support Staffordshire. So
Yes.
I'm not sure whether they're in this area. I don't know well enough, but certainly Cannock and all those sort of areas in the Borderlands and Newcastle, they are. Burton, they're employed by Burton now, being Community Trust in Tamworth, they're employed by somebody else. But a lot of them are employed by Support Staffordshire, and we have got somebody who coordinates support for social prescribers across the county. So another route in to get information could be through the social prescribers that work in the GP practice.
I would have thought
They
so.
deal with a lot of patients.
I think I'm one of the Support Staffordshire connectors. I think Michelle Williams is one of the social. Yeah, I've worked with Michelle for a few years.
She works on community issues.
Yeah, she's very good. Any more questions from your AOLs? Yes, please. Go on, Kath.
Just a couple of observations, if I can, please. Obviously, you've done a lot of work on this. Cross-border issues haven't just been a problem now. They've been my two colleagues are nodding their heads at me. They've been an issue for rather a long time. It says cross-border issues, so I'm assuming, looking at your presentation, it's more to do with the mental health issues as opposed to the general consensus of medical needs, basically. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Did try and allude to the fact that absolutely.
Yeah. There always has been in South Staffordshire cross-border issues. You went on to say on your slides there about the postcode and the peninsula. It happens. I live in the north of South Staffs, and as you can appreciate, it happens around where we are because we're so close to Walsall, and that area. We're a WS postcode. We're not. We actually live in Staffordshire, but we're a WS. Likewise, just further up from me in Featherstone, they're WV, which is Wolverhampton. So postcodes are irrelevant in this case, actually, in my opinion, because we actually live. I wish we could get back to this where we actually live and put Staffordshire, South Staffordshire, on the bottom of our addresses, basically, because we would all know where we stood if that was the case. Yes, exactly. Like they do in Tamworth, they go to Birmingham, and Burton-on-Trent, where you've just come from, they go to Derby, up that way. Absolutely. And so we've always had these issues. So I'm mindful that I understand where you're coming from, because we seem to be suffering more with mental health issues everywhere these days for one reason or another. And of course, we're an ageing population, which is what you've just said. So there are other issues like dementia and everything. It's a good starting point, but I think there's a long way to go on this, an awful long way to go. I don't know what the answer is. I wish we did. We could put it right and wave a magic wand and it'd be fine. Because like you say, you get into an ambulance and you're taken anywhere, wherever they can get you basically into. So it's an issue, and I understand you're looking at it more from the south of South Staffordshire, but I just want to flag up, if I may, Chairman, through you, that it's been an issue, as my colleagues at Health Wash would say, it's been an issue all across South Staffordshire. If you live on the opposite side, on the western side, you tend to go to Shropshire. So it's an issue. We're that kind of dogleg shape, aren't we, South Staffordshire? And you know, this is part of the problem. I hope we can do something about it because, but not just for mental health, also for other health needs. Because, you know, it affects everyone, your health. You need to know where you're going to, not to keep repeating yourself or somebody else having to repeat what's the problem with you. So sorry if I'm going on a little bit. I just thought I needed to flag that up if that's okay with you. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just quickly come in on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just in the mental health, it's like you said, general health. as
Yes.
well. One of the patients that contacted us was the accountable was and mentioned, and this particular person said that they were used to going, let's just say to Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
easier for them. But because of the contract changes,
Yes.
they're temporarily still going there. But once that contract bears
It bears, yeah.
then that there's changes you could potentially then have to go up a step front.
It's a long way then.
Very long way. for
Absolutely.
that stuff. And this is where, and I've raised this actually one of the meetings with the ICB, to which they said, but when they put any contracts out, when they put that tender, they make sure they have that consideration in mind for who it's going to impact. But from what they've said and what happens, we've got to look at why that's happening.
Yes, yeah.
Because the provider themselves, are they saying something different and changing it later, or is it that it wasn't really well thought through at all? So that's one area. I think it's something that we do need to really home in on. I think that was the only. Oh, and the other one issue I think you need to bear in mind is that the different trusts don't actually talk to each other
No.
in the sense that the systems are very different.
Yeah.
If you've got to transfer a file over to another trust, as you know, then these will come into it. So it's not just a person going now just over Trent. It's that information that's got to go with them. And that could take a long time.
If I can just come quickly back on, it's also about the aftercare with somebody that comes out of a hospital, because it's getting them to, that's why beds are being taken up in hospitals for so long, because the aftercare doesn't marry up with when the person needs to be out of the hospital, the care needs to go into the home. And I think we need that needs sorted. There's an awful lot of work to be done on this issue. Yeah.
To pick up some of that.
Yeah.
Aftercare. We've got our deep dives going on, I think, just for the Maya, and that's about admission avoidance and about hospital discharge.
Yes. Yeah.
We can bring that back here as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
No, thank you. Councillor Evans?
Thank you. Got our normal microphones to press today. Will speaker. Yes, thank you for your presentation. Very informative. I know living in WB postcode as well. Many physical issues in my family. Sometimes we're in a New Cross hospital, and sometimes we're off to camp. As you said, from Perth is a bus, and it's a train to Birmingham, and then it's the not too frequent, we usually train to camp from them. I have done that once in my life, not for medical reasons. So that is a big issue. I was just wondering where you see things going from here. You've identified some issues and some liaising with what services are commissioned, and there's this thing with social prescribers. How do you see the solutions or potential solutions developing?
I mean, quickly, colleagues, so I'm sure we want to come in on this, but my view is that what we really need to do is get the commissions sorted out so that all the providers are very, very clear about there's looking after them, how they're looking after them. That includes not discriminating around people coming across borders. And we also need, as part of that, kind of hinted at it for the presentation, to make sure that the providers are aware, and that needs to go quite low down in their organisations, for the sake of some of the outpatients, clinic and things like that. I think they need to be aware of who they can see, and the fact that they can see people from across the border. That's one of the problems. So I think, whilst we're not going to solve it all, and Councillor Perry is absolutely right that this is a whole can of worms that we're opening here. I'll be happy if we can, manage to contain the worm spread a little bit. I think that's probably achievable, but it will require some significant input, I think, into the commissioning process and making sure that providers are aware what their responsibilities are looking after our people. Councillor Perry, by the way, is absolutely right. In fairness, Councillor Bertie painted this as well, which is an issue across the county. It's just perhaps more obvious for us.
Yeah.
Because we're so far away from the West, but it is an issue everywhere. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Mark,
Thank you.
Thank you. so Mark, do you want to have a word, Fiona?
Yes, please. Thanks for the presentation. That's very interesting. You mentioned in there in passing about the voluntary sector, and obviously all the budgets have been slashed.
Mental health has been increased
Right?
in regards
But in
to
real terms,
in the voluntary sector. Yeah, because the government put money into the mental health transformation funds, and it had to be ring fenced to be spent on mental health,
right?
and a significant part of it had to be spent on what I suppose broadly you call sort of socio-economic type of support. So there have been several millions has been spent in Staffordshire in the last 3 years, contracting with the voluntary sector. For example, I mean, I'm a trustee of Burton Mine. I can talk about it because I'm involved with an organisation that 3 years ago had a turnover of 230,000, now got a turnover of 1.3 million. A lot of that has come from working with the NHS, and they're doing things like they run a crisis cafe in Tamworth. They've got staff on the crisis teams in the southwest and the southeast of the county now to support workers. They've got anger management support services. They're running counselling services. They're running in conjunction with the NHS. Some of the talking therapies. They've got staff on the acute mental health teams. Changes and Mind have both got, I think, Changes in this side of the county, Mind in the other side of the county. There are CAB staff now attached to mental health teams that can deal with welfare benefits issues. So a lot of the social and economic issues which contribute to people's mental health needs, and when you're in acute mental health state, just escalate really because there's nobody to deal with them. I mean, in southeast staffs, which is the area I know best, those voluntary sector workers, and there's a combination of them through several organisations, are dealing with 300 patients at the moment with acute mental illness. So there have been quite significant developments into the voluntary sector. In fact, I think my observation is that while the mental health services don't seem to be able to recruit staff, they've got loads of vacancies for CPNs and psychiatric nurses. The voluntary sector are recruiting support workers more successfully than the NHS are at the moment.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that obviously with all in our communities, we've seen a gap, and people will jump in and set up a group to support it. So we've had a men's mental health group funded through district recently. I've managed to get funding for a menopause group. But it feels a little bit piecemeal. I'm just wondering if there's a structure to this that people seeing that gap can sort of, rather than reinventing the wheel, can latch onto something that's already structured and resources are there, and you've got a go-to network and whatever. I think that might be. I think helpful.
In Staffordshire, under the new commissioning arrangements, and the ICB are now more strategic than operational, aren't they? What they've done is they've delegated the mental health budgets to Midlands Partnership Foundation Trust and Combined Healthcare in the North, and told them, this is the money, you deliver the services, this is broadly what we want, you go sort it all out. So it's a slightly different way of working now. The money has been downloaded into the trusts, and they are responsible for organising and developing mental health services within Staffordshire within the budget. That's how it works. So the voluntary sector had their services commissioned from MPFT using the transformation monies, which the government said have got to be earmarked to mental health, and they can't be spent. It's about trying to raise mental health in parity with physical health. I mean, it's not got, but it's better than it was. And a lot of this stuff around social and economic, the social determinants of mental health, I suppose, are where a lot of that work's going on, and it is having quite a degree of success. with some of these, particularly long-term mental health people that have had chronic, serious mental health conditions and never have really had enough input consistently to actually work through and sort them out.
Yeah, I mean, it is good to know that there is more money being put into it,
Yeah.
but as you said yourself, you've still got these massively long lead times.
Yeah,
So,
certain areas.
2.5
Yeah.
years if it's sort of
Yeah.
autism.
I mean,
related as well,
autism
like
is
that.
particularly difficult.
Yeah.
But it is being looked at. But again, we all know that the stature of the economy was 200 and something million in the red. I think it's now 91 million in the red. So the overdraft's coming down, but they are working with him. The increasing pressure from the Department of NHS England and the Department of Health to get it under control as well. There are obvious tensions.
A comment I'd make about this, I mean, I go back quite some years on this, and well before we would support Staffordshire, I'm trying to think of what the original name was, but we had a fantastic scheme whereby we had a voluntary car scheme, and it was managed by Neil Morris Hobley, and that folded, and they've had quite a lot of problems with residents here in Cotswold that needed transport to the hospital. So I've managed to sort that out. But that was one scheme that we lost that was of great benefit to the community, bearing in leg the dog leg shape of South Staffordshire. That's a great shame, but that's just an aside. Okay, thank you. Mark.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Via the chair then, in terms of next steps regarding this, I think as Councillor Harrison alluded to, due to the joint code of health scrutiny, technically it's not an area for us to look at as a district-wide committee. It's a county-wide issue. However, Councillor Harrison Health Watch College have done a great job to pull this together. So suggesting regarding next steps is we've obviously got the Kimber perspective, is to send something out to all the local practices to get their PPGs to input with their issues, depending on what comes back, might bolster what we've got. And then at that stage, I think it's another conversation with Councillor Pert. Again, as Councillor Perry alluded to, this is an issue we've tried to grapple with for a long time, but it appears we've got some traction and momentum, and we don't want to lose that. So if we've got, I think the comment from Councillor Pert was he wasn't quite sure what some of those issues were. I think we've obviously articulated some of the southern end of the district challenges. If we've got the whole picture, I think it's one we go back with to Councillor Pert to say, would this be something you would now like to take on and look at from a county-wide perspective, or would you be prepared for us to invite commissioners to the South Staffs Committee to have some of those conversations?
Yeah.
We do need a bit more information from commissioners, which I think we're in a place where there's no treading on anyone's toes to get that at the moment. So I think getting that information would be helpful, and that would feed into that discussion with the county going forward along the lines that you've just suggested earlier on.
Good. Okay. All right, members, are you happy with where we are with this? And we'll carry on with this. Okay. All right.
The other point, Madam Chairman, is you have got a seminar, an event in South Staffordshire. I think it's on the 16th of May on ageing.
Aging well, yeah.
Aging
Aging
well.
well,
And
yes.
some of this dementia stuff may kick into some of that debate. I get
Yes.
that you have that event. And I know you've got the Director of Adult Social Care coming to talk.
Yeah.
So perhaps that's something that will come up again in that forum.
Great. Okay. Any comments from any of the members? Okay. You're happy with where we are? Okay. All right. Yes, I think so. Yes.
Baz, Dave, if you can stay, you're more than welcome to stay for the next part. But if you want to exit at this point, that's fine.
We're going to go.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. There's a lot of background work on this. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. So, members, I'm going to move on now to item 5, which is the South Staffordshire Community Safety Partnership Plan 2023-26. Presentation from South Staffordshire Council and Staffordshire Police. Okay.
Oh, sorry, yes.
You've got to, but can't get out. Right, okay, so the community safety partnership plan, please. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, members. The presentation that we're bringing today is following on from the information that we brought before the committee in October of last year to update members on the performance against a number of key targets within the part of the plan, and then to look at what the future of the plan looks like for year 2. So just in terms of refreshing people's memories, the Community Safety Partnership Plan is a 3-year overarching plan. Within the plan, it contains a number of actions aiming to reduce crime, disorder, antisocial behaviour across the district. The first year of the partnership plan was last year, 2023-2024, which has just come to an end. As that plan comes to an end, the outcomes and priorities for year 2 are discussed, and a strategic assessment review is undertaken by the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner as office. The priority themes for the second year of the plan also consider the responses to the resident survey that went out last year, takes into account the new council plan, which has come into action from this year and takes us through to 2020-28, and also considers local police intelligence as well. To support the delivery of the plan, members may well remember and be aware that we received grant funding through the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office in the form of the Locality Deal Fund.
Thank you. So it's an opportune time, we thought, just to come and tell you what's happened in year 1, where we are, what the outcomes are. So there's a joint presentation between myself and the Chief Inspector as we go along. It'll be a bit of a double act, but hopefully it's just it'll just give you a good overview of what's been going on. So throughout 23-24, all figures are as at 28th of March 2024. So the aim was to reduce all recorded crime by 2%. And as at that date, we saw a 5% reduction. So that's 5,570 crimes were reported.
Yeah, so just touching on really, I mean, I didn't really want to say it because I was going to hold it in my pocket for next year, but it's actually 8% reduction at the moment. So last month we made even more.
Yes.
Even more success in terms of reducing that crime. And just to provide a bit of a picture, you know, there's no bigger budget here. In terms of the last 12 months, we've actually scrutinised ourselves even more because we've obviously worked with Her Majesty's Inspector Corporate to improve ourselves as an organisation. So in terms of actually recording crime, we're stricter on it than we ever have been. So to actually achieve a reduction, I think quite clearly shows the success and work of community safety partnership with the police service in actually going out there and identifying crime, detecting and preventing it. So just in relation to that figure there, it's an outstanding achievement really that's been worked by listening to communities and actually working in partnership to make a bit of a difference. So I'll let you continue.
So within all recorded crime sits vehicle crime, and at the time of us beginning year 1, back at the March 2023, vehicle crime had a 77% increase. So to have a 2% decrease on that was quite a challenge. But as you can see, as of the 28th of March, vehicle crime actually reduced by 20%. That was a recorded theft of vehicles of 466 crimes.
Yeah, and you know, I don't want to really surprise moving forward in relation to our form. It's not commitment to that, but it's no secret our footprint and self-stature has increased for having the LPTT team, having officers who understand where the crime hotspots are, where they're invisible, where they're being preventative, where they're putting education to residents and repeat victims. You know, the stats, theft from a motor vehicle, actually stealing items from within the motor vehicle, is down 34%, which is enormous. Theft of motor vehicle in South Staffordshire there's currently a 0% change. However, compared to other trends nationally, we're miles ahead. So in Lichfield, they're currently experiencing a 40% increase in theft of motor vehicle, which really goes to show the good work that's actually done in South Staffordshire.
So we also wanted to increase the number of repeat victims of domestic abuse accessing services by 20%. We were measuring this by a multi-agency risk assessment conference where high-risk victims of domestic abuse are discussed. So through this process, there's been an increase from 108 cases to 140 cases. So we haven't just seen the domestic abuse victims accessing services by 20%, but we've seen them accessing by 30%. So that has been quite a large increase there. To reduce serious violence, including violence against women and girls, by 2%, there was a reclassification of violent crime within 2022-23 and then 23-24, and considering as at April 2023, there was a 222% increase in serious violence because of the strangulation category being reclassified. We stand still at a slight increase, but 8% increase, and that's 40 violent crimes recorded.
Okay, and all I would add on that really is I think it's really important. An increase can be seen quite negative, as in, are women and girls out there being treated badly? However, at the same time, it's so topical and it's so successful at putting it out there that it's unacceptable. We're encouraging that reporting. So an increase maybe that would be really good, encouraging people to be brave, that we're supporting people in actually bringing offenders to justice. So we've got to consider that aspect of it as well. It may be a positive, and I know that certainly in respect of the work we are doing in Marrick, the cases I'm seeing come forward now that may never have been brought forward to our attention before, we can look at taking steps to protect people, to help people destroyed. It's just really clear that our officers, that our teams are understanding risk now and making those, those inroads to get people protection where it's needed.
We wanted to see a reduction in antisocial behaviour by 10%, and we've seen a reduction in 33%. That's 726 incidents recorded. I just wanted to mention the public spaces protection orders. We now have 6 in the district currently running. All of the areas that the PSPOs have been served in have seen a reduction in antisocial behaviour. 3 of them have got gating orders on as well, so that's also assisted in the reduction of fly tipping at the same time.
No, just that we have a dedicated problem-solving officer now who is absolutely focused on antisocial behaviour and looking for emerging trends before they come a serious issue in the community. We need to get in there and actually stop the issue getting out of hand, and that's having a really positive impact for us, performing really well compared to the police and the force. So it's a big, it's good achievement.
And then the feelings of safety, people out and about in that local area during the day, recorded 88% in the resident survey of 2022, and then after dark recorded residents saying 67% felt safe after dark. In the resident survey 2023, figures remained exactly the same, funnily enough. So what we would like to do is definitely see the 67% increase after dark. But when surveys have been undertaken on people when out and about, as well as my locality enabling role, people are saying they feel unsafe, but when asked, it's the news. So unfortunately, national, global events are having a little bit of an impact on people's perception of safety when out and about. So outcomes for year 2. We are considering here the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner's strategic assessment. We're looking at local policing intelligence. We're looking at our resident survey as well. And we want to achieve, again, another 2% reduction in all recorded crime. So that's from that 5750 record back in 28th of March. We want to reduce vehicle crime by 2%. Some of you may be thinking, hang on, you've just told us we've reduced it by 20%. Why only 2? We just want it to be a realistic target. I'm just going to hand over to yourself now, Tim, because Operation Bournemouth has been a huge success in South Staffordshire, so huge that they've decided in the police force to roll it out further than just our district.
Yeah. So I think it's no secret, and we're all friends here. We are very lucky in South Staffordshire because the sergeant who's in charge of the Bournemouth team is a South Staffordshire gentleman, and he's very proud to have lived here all his life. So we get quite a lot of attention from the Bournemouth team, but at the same time, that team has to provide a service to the east, and that includes Lichfield and Burton and Tamworth. So our force's commitment to Bournemouth is such that they're now looking at having another team. So they'll have a team on the west of the county, they'll have a team on the east. Okay. So what that means is that the focus of Operation Bournemouth and the impact it can make in South Staffordshire should increase over the next 12 months. It is no secret that over the last 2 or 3 months nationally, we have seen an increase in vehicle crime. That's something we've seen in Stafford, who never usually experience serious critical crime in terms of vehicles being targeted. They took quite a hammering in February. We've seen it in Lichfield, we've seen it in Tamworth, we've seen it in Burton, we've seen it in Cannock. So there has been an increase over the 2 months. So we have to be realistic in what can we actually achieve in actually reducing vehicle crime. And I feel based on that current upward trend, which will level off and come down again, based on the fact that we're going to have an investment from the organisation into expanding the current team, I think 2% is quite a fair figure, really. And it's something that's realistic. We don't want to set ourselves up to fail. We want a good news story and to make an impact and something that's achievable. And I think that is achievable. And it will be a great success based on where we were 12 months ago.
To reduce repeat victims of domestic abuse through accessing services provided by New Era, who are the service provider in Staffordshire. This is going to, the measurement of this is going to be changed because we are conscious that cases discussed at MARA are not repeat cases. So we want to make sure that people accessing services don't go round and round again and then come back as a repeat. We want to try and ensure that every single victim who's accessing the service of New Era goes on to change and their life circumstances change. They don't end up back there again. So that is why we've decided to change how we record it next year. We want to reduce serious violence, including violence against women and girls, by 2%. That's from the 115 crimes. Reduce antisocial behaviour by 3% from 726 incidents. You may say, okay, we've just seen 33% reduction. Again, due to a reclassification of antisocial behaviour, we are thinking antisocial behaviour may increase this year because it reclassified into harassment, didn't it, which was under all crimes. But now, as we can see, with the reduction of all crimes, that's obviously evening out, and we are being able to compare year on year that antisocial behaviour may have an effect on that particular figure going forwards. So we do think 3% is achievable. I've kept, or we rather, so the Community Centre have kept the feeling of safety during the day and after all. It's the same, but we do hope to be able to change that and see a change in the next survey in 2024, the residents' survey.
So what I would just quickly add on, if I may, is in relation to violence against women and girls, you might ask how do we reduce serious violence. Well, maybe touch on some of the things already about scrutiny through MARIC. One of the key things we're introducing since I arrived is we're actually now encouraging OICs to attend courts, to physically be there, to actually hold the prosecution team to account. We recently saw an officer do that in the last couple of weeks, and it actually resulted in defendants being sent to prison because of our presence actually having an active engagement with the CPS. So it's just about having that presence and ensuring that repeat offenders do actually go to prison and do see a positive outcome for the victim. In terms of antisocial behaviour, I mean, you hit it quite quickly, really. I talked about we were being a bit more strict in how we reported crimes, that we were doing it transparently and honestly. So we identified if you have an neighbour dispute, that would historically have been antisocial behaviour. If it had occurred 2, 3, 4 or 5 times, it was always recorded as antisocial behaviour. Well, actually, it's a crime of harassment because it's an ongoing act designed to cause someone intimidation, fear. So we actually record more ASB as harassment now, which results in crime levels coming up, but antisocial behaviour levels coming down, which is what Maggie touched on. So the fact that we've actually still managed to reduce crime, we must be a testament to success, really.
So tackling priorities, what have we been doing throughout the year? Obviously, for vehicle crime, specifically cross-border crime. Funnily enough, Chief Inspector was just showing me where the vehicle crime was taking place. It's very sporadic. However, it's also on the border, although it's spread out, it is, you know, on the border area, Great Worley, Featherstone, Womben, Hinfer. They're all coming in, unfortunately, from cross-border. So a lot of the work of Operation Bournemouth has been working with West Midlands Police, Central Motorway Policing Group. So a lot of partnership work has taken place. Serious violence, including domestic violence against women and girls. We are doing another campaign offering free alarms, not just to women and girls, although that's the way that we are promoting it. It's for anybody who may feel when they're going out and about this summer, just pack your sun cream to be safe. But if you want a free personal alarm as well, to make yourself feel safe while you're out and about, come and get one from South Central Council or the Parish Council. So we've also been in touch with all parish councils to ask if they haven't got alarms, would they like them for some of their residents to come and get some. Also, we have a community safety newsletter, and it doesn't just talk about violence against women and girls, it talks about everything in our priorities. But I'm very pleased to say that that has now exceeded 2,000 sign-ups. I will once again put it out on social media and send it to parish councils too, for anybody to pass out to people in South Staffordshire if they want to sign up to it. Antisocial behaviour. Off-road bikes have proved quite problematic at times in South Staffordshire, especially Cannock Chase, Shoal Hill, Cabonswood. We now see the railway walk as well. So a lot of work has been done. We're now doing a event or campaign, joint operation with Cannock and our local policing team as well, especially in those areas. And we've been meeting partners as well, the Forestry Commission, Homes Plus, to look at how specifically Cabonswood can be made an area that residents feel a little bit less worried about. Perception versus reality. Again, like I say, the newsletter has got 2,000 sign-ups. We just want to get that far and wide as far as we can. And we've got campaigns going on at regular intervals throughout the year. So this top one is this current one, Stay Safe this summer, starting on the 22nd of April, runs right until the 30th of August. So all over the summer months, people can get free alarms if they wish. Antisocial behaviour, it was last July, and it was Antisocial Behaviour Awareness Week. So we'll be doing exactly the same this year and putting a campaign out. Hopefully we'll be having ASB Harmony around and about the building. So if you want any advice about antisocial behaviour, look out for those and come in and get some advice. We also, Perception versus Reality, we have a one-month parking pilot that's in place right at the moment, just trying to help residents feel a little bit less intimidated by some of the inconsiderate parking. So that's in pilot stage. So we will be looking at results and the whole remit of how it's been organised and how it's been promoted, and all of that will be taken into account.
I think you touched on it quite well there. I think one of the things I'm quite keen on is to get as many police officers into South Staffordshire as possible and to actually look at how we manage our deployments. And I think when you touched on the cross-border working, that's absolutely key. And I'd expect you to expect me to hold counterparts in West Mids to account to say, what are you doing as part of the impact of the crime that's coming from them onto us? So I've got a meeting in 2 weeks' time with the inspectors of Wolverhampton and some of the other locations of West Midlands where some of the cars stolen from me have been located to adjust what you're going to do about it. And one of the schemes that we're looking at is actually piloting one of my officers at Southstaffs with one of their officers on night shifts to actually monitor the border. So you bring in police officers onto loss from other forces, but also Cannock. So I'll be speaking to my counterpart, Inspector Chris Moss at Cannock, about doing some joint operations and bringing their officers onto us as well. And the example of that will be Monday, where you've probably seen the topic that is retail crime and increase around the country. The gun offending is impacted on us and impacted on them. So we're going to have a joint team on Southstaff to get that individual into custody. So it's just about being a bit more wise and getting more people into Southstaffordshire. As should be real, you shouldn't just be a front in the front for West Midlands fence coming up to us. They're going to take some responsibility.
Alongside the Community Partnership Plan, the Police Fire and Crime Commissioner has allocated some funding for the locality deal fund. So throughout 2023-24, we have spent the locality deal fund on lighting for joint operations on the A449, A460. You may be aware that we have car cruising in South Staffordshire. We are tackling this car cruising by implementing a PSPO, Public Spaces Protection Order, and Section 59, a joint enforcement process. We have been through our cabinet procedure, but due to the election, we haven't begun the PSPO process. This will be beginning next week and the week after, starting with consultations with everybody who lives along the designated areas of those two roads, plus a link road, new road, landowners, people who are also affected by the noise, local businesses. So it will be quite a large consultation over a 2-month period, and then South Staffordshire Council has the responsibility to serve the PSPO. Section 59 are used by Staffordshire Police and can be used right away as long as signage is up and people who go into that particular zone are aware that they've been in the zone once. If they're then stopped by a police officer twice, their vehicle can be seized there and then, and they can be fined as well. We've also had batteries and chargers for the overnight operations, which have been partner operations on those roads. We've had some drone pilot courses, 3 extra pilots. We've bought a lot more ring doorbells. Ring doorbells have been highly successful, not just for victims of domestic abuse, but for victims of antisocial behaviour, victims of crime, and recommended by the crime reduction officer as well throughout the whole of the district. We've paid for existing Section 59 Public Spaces Protection Order signage because Baggeridge has had a lot of signage in place around about to stop off-road biking, as has the Kinver, the Biffa site in Kinver. We've done a lot of work there with PCSOs as well. We've purchased speed indication devices, SIDS, for partnership working with parishes, and we've had a lot of discussion with parishes now about where they're likely to go, how we can help parishes and work together to have a lot more SID locations in the district. And we're also working with Staffordshire Police to make sure that it's intelligence led. So where these SIDs are going, there are problems with speeding. We've purchased and repaired extra CCTVs. We have bought the personal alarms for not just the extra layer campaign, but the Stay Safe in Staffordshire. We've had some gating, as I've mentioned, as part of existing protection orders. So we paid for the gates in Oldhampton Lane, Ormond Sewage Works, and Orchard Lane, Shares Hill. We've purchased some steering locks. When we've done surveys, we realised we don't have the response we'd like, so we're now offering prizes for people who fill in and complete surveys and return them. So we've been offering steering locks because crime has been such a focus. We bought steering locks with it. Obviously, we were trying to get some more promotional materials available for any campaigns, any activities, any events that we go out to, including Faraday bags, including headlines and other purse bells and other little bits and pieces to help people feel more safe and secure when they're out and about. And we've also supported vulnerable residents with hoarding. We've we've paid for several skips through the vulnerability hub, working in partnership with the housing providers to clear out some houses.
Cost a fortune if they did mine.
And year two. So year two, community safety plan on the page will be available on our website for all residents to just have a look at what we are going to be focusing on next year. So our main priorities will be cross-border crime, serious violence, including domestic abuse and violence against women and girls, antisocial behaviour, and perception versus reality. So the antisocial behaviour, like I've said, we will be looking at a public spaces protection order on stretches of roads, A460, New Road, A449. I've also just had another request for a public spaces protection order on the railway wall, seeing because that is causing quite a lot of regulation for off-road biking and linking to Baggeridge. So I'm also going to just have a chat about Baggeridge as well to see if we can bring that into play. But we will also have consideration for rural crime. South Staffordshire's rural crime numbers have seen an increase. We have smart water, which are property marking, DNA property marking. And although we had over 1,000 kits that we purchased for vehicle crime, some of those we still have, and we are going to redirect those to rural crime. So farmers can mark their farm vehicles, farm tack, farm equipment, because that's high value and gets stolen. Fraud, sorry.
And I was going to say, just to highlight your good work there, our Deputy Chief Constable has called it fraud, so it's actually highlighted South Africa and the way you're using smart alerts. It's been ahead of anyone else nationally, so I think they're really impressed with that. That's great. Just feedback to you personally there. I meant to mention it to you earlier.
Fraud as well. Fraud is one of the highest crimes in the country. Online fraud, especially. So it is high, and it's something that we are mindful of always. And funnily enough, just to give you a funny story, in my community safety newsletter that goes out, I have obviously instilled into people so often, please do not click on links you don't know. So when I've put stories out with a link, percentage of people who read is so low that click on the link. I realise I'm probably a victim of my own success there, which is good to hear though, at least people are taking that on board. So now I do just a large spiel on that story. Road safety, obviously speeding is always something that's mentioned when we go to parish councils, when we talk to people about what worries them in their local area. Community cohesion was last year one of the top 5 priorities, but we had asylum seekers and refugees placed in 2 hotels. So we were conscious, we wanted to make sure that there was a community cohesion element to community safety. It is still going to be monitored, but not quite as intensive as it has been. Drug use, drug dealing, and health and wellbeing as well, which obviously we realise runs through a lot of community safety, especially in the vulnerability hub. I can safely say that over 78% of all the cases discussed relate to mental health, and linked to alcohol and substance misuse as well. The sort of the two go hand in hand a lot of time. Tackling our priorities, we have a tactical priorities group which is going ahead. It is a partnership group run by the police and partners linking to it. We have the MARAC for the domestic abuse. We have, oh yes, young people's activities. Not so much young people's activities, but what we're going to do is give young people a voice. We want to make sure that we hear their perception of community safety, what their troubles and worries and aspirations are for themselves in South Staffordshire, and also continue through campaigns, through the newsletter, through partnership, social media as well, to tell people that actually South Staffordshire is a low crime area. Sorry, maybe no, I'm lost there.
I think just before questions, I mean, I good fortune to look at other LPTs throughout Staffordshire. I've had good fortune to look at Tamworth, Lichfield, Burton, Stafford, and South Staffs. And I genuinely mean when I say the work of the Community Safety Partnership here and the partnerships in general is just on another level. And I mean a good level. It's really good. And this is genuinely a fantastic place to live. When you look at the crime statistics, the work that goes on, the repeat offenders, the prevention to prevent people reoffending here, it is outstanding. So it's a good news story, really. It's credit to my predecessors and the people sat next to me that we're in that state, really. So I welcome any questions we maybe.
Thank you. A couple of comments, really. I'm alarmed to see the domestic abuse cases are 108 cases up to 140, but on the other hand, the antisocial behaviour reduced by 33%, which is great. That's good news. Can I ask you, where are the public spaces protection areas? Where are they?
Yes, we've got London Sewage Works.
Sorry?
London Sewage Works access road.
Yes.
Orchard Lane Shares Hill.
Yep.
Link Road.
Yes.
Oldhampton Lane in West West.
Okay.
Various areas in London, which include the Vape Pole, the Community Centre, and the Car Park and Brickbridge Lane. I should be on these off because I know them very well.
Hill Lane? Hill Lane?
That's not. It's. I do apologise.
No, not at all. No.
Great one.
You'd have to be in there somewhere.
Oh, bless you. No, it's interesting to know about those, and also the community safety newsletter. I have to admit, I'm not on that, so I shall sort that out. But thank you for the presentation. So, questions?
Yeah, thank you,
Councillor Berry.
Chairman. Yes,
Yes.
thank you for the presentation. Could I just ask the Chief Inspector? You mentioned the cross border. Obviously, I represent Great Worley in my role as a district councillor. In my role as a county councillor, I'm one of the ones that represent Featherstone, Shareshill, Essington, Cheslin-Hay, Great Worley, all that area. So I just wonder, you mentioned cross border, talking to your colleagues in the West Midlands, Walsall, I'm assuming that is, also Cannock. I wonder if you wouldn't mind including at some point the Network Rail policing. Yes, please. Yes, please, because we get an awful lot of cross-border come along that railway line. They drop off at Great Worley from Bloxbridge to Great Worley. They don't pay. They just get off there and cause problems.
Yes.
Sorry. And then some of them stay on and get to Cannock. So that's why I'm mentioning it to you. Maybe that's something you could include in your conversations with the transport police.
I'm aware we have with that particular.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So when we have a company,
Yes.
we do work with them. We have a night.
Yeah.
Do some work, but more could be done with that. So
If you wouldn't mind, because they get off at Great Worley by South Staff's car park, by the railway. It's, by the way, it's a halt, not a station, in my opinion. But there we go. And the playing field, the young people playing fields, there's playing fields there, as councillors and officers know. So it would be useful to speak to your colleagues on the rail transport. Please, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And basically, they were great to start off with. We, myself, part of a community speed, and once we're there, we do make a bit of a difficult one up there. It's more and more speeding vehicles going past straight at the 30s and things like that. Now, one of the things that we'd like us to do is speed safety ranking, what we're recording there, because it doesn't seem to be any of them. And I also believe that what we record on our sheets goes towards intelligence as well. But away cars or things like that. Just like to see if we can actually get some family vans into our district. And because using the back lane like that, it's starting to get a bit ridiculous, this speed limit. especially throughout this, we've got really high population. We've had the bikes people that wake up for the couple of 999. So I've sent in some video footage of this as well. This gates have been ridiculous.
I know that generally speed cameras will deploy based on intelligence and based on accident hotspot areas, etc.
Yeah.
But it's that intelligence that's really important. If you talk to me about it, like you just have, I can actually contact and ask for that extra representation. If you know, that would be good. Yeah, no problem. That's fine. I can do that.
The other thing, so have you got cross-border with Shropshire as well?
Yes. So we're currently, my Sergeant Harry Small is looking at doing some, well, we mentioned the Royal Crime Operation in hand with West Mercia and intellectual crime and actually doing some. I won't go into too much because I bore you stairs, but there's a lot of work going on in terms of cross-border crime.
Yeah, one of the problems we've got, I think you mentioned on that is, well, you mentioned agricultural crime.
Yeah.
But one of the people that work in the spirit of putting £1,000 worth of stuff still in developments. And one of the things is, yes, and I don't know if there's anything you can actually suggest for them, but he has a farm track and rights of way, so I want to put a big gate to stop anybody coming in and out so they can just go straight.
Is that public right away?
Yeah, it's about, I mean, apparently if it's a style or something like that, we could probably get that down, but they said we can't put a gate across it even though it's to his property. And that would stop. And so, you know, you're looking at prevention against, you know, rights of things.
Yes.
So it's another problem we've got. This is in the, you know, the countryside sort of thing that we have the problem with. And it is getting to be as simple as they believe that they don't go for much good health. Yeah, right. It's all going there. But it's getting that ridiculous now. They're just walking straight in and taking off. They're just stuck in the house. They can't stop people coming in.
For each person to follow to us, but
They're doing something on a regular basis, but I think he's getting frustrated. To lose £100,000 of stuff that's all once he's getting quite frustrated. I can't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving forward, I'm always staff at meetings with the Chamber of Commerce in relation to all crimes and look at some of the statistics and what we can do in partnership, trying to improve things. We have got some raw crime operations coming up, and I mean imminently. I'll continue with some with West Mercia because it's no secret West Mercia are probably the leading police service in respect of tackling raw crime. We have some really good practices that we're going to learn from, and it is something which we are going to focus on throughout the summer. So if you want to try and move some details up personally, we'll take another look. Yeah, we could potentially look at sending our EIPU, our evidential practice policing unit out to target hardening. That gate, I'll be honest with you, without being an expert in land registry, etc., it sounds a bit odd, but you couldn't put a gate that the public could open. I'm a bit unsure on the law around that, but I just certainly ask my team to look at it with architects and the like.
That's great, thank you. I think he's had rights away.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. Can I just put one more question? The one-born parking pilots, can you explain that one to me?
Yes, it is a scheme where we are offering the public the opportunity to send in photographs of they perceive to be inconsiderate parking. However, there's a link to our website which explains what the criteria is of inconsiderate. So they can send a photo in that links to one of those or two of those criteria.
Right. Is that any village?
No,
it's specific.
It's just one.
Yeah, the piloting.
Okay. All right.
The referrals come into us through the photographs that we've asked for.
Okay.
It's a partnership approach that involves ourselves, the police, and the county council as well. We at South Staff's district council triage the referrals that come in. So we assess those against the criteria that we've sort of published. So this is what essentially constitutes as inconsiderate or dangerous parking. And of those, then we forward those to colleagues in the police or the county council, depending on what the type of parking issue is. So if it's a it'll be a yellow lines offence. That's something that's enforced by the county council, and that's where we would send that from that point of view. There's then potentially action from partners with the police and the county where if they agree with the referral that we've made, then there's a letter that's then sent to the keeper of the vehicle that draws their attention to the parking in inconsiderately and essentially trying to do some behaviour change from that point of view. So that pilot runs for another up until the 30th of May. And then we're looking at evaluating the learning from that pilot to help inform what sort of future steps on.
Okay, that's good, because we have got a specific problem in Cotswold under the bridge, Maggie. So yeah, so be interested to see how the one board pilot goes, because I would like to pursue with Cotswold. Okay, thank you. Members, any questions to our team? Yes, Fiona.
Just interested in scooters, as in the little electric things that you see lads whizzing around on the pavement.
That's even mine.
Yeah. So the last I heard, the government had gone through all the motions and they'd done trials and they'd done projects around different places where you were allowed to ride them under certain circumstances. All the rest of it. Where are we at with that? Because I'm all in favour of sustainable transport. But if you've got young kids whizzing around, blind corners, no insurance, no safety gear, but where that's certainly antisocial behaviour.
Yeah, it's a number of things you've hit earlier. So you're absolutely right. Obviously, the government had its scheme. I think they ran one in Stafford when I was there from a train station. They had certain glide paths you could use on them, and it was all legitimate. It was all wonderful. Absolute nightmare still, but legitimate. The reality is they shouldn't be riding them, and it is potentially a moving traffic offence, particularly if it's on the road. They shouldn't be riding them. In terms of where we
but it's the pavements I'm more concerned about. So on the roads, they're the ones that are going to get splattered rather than the local residents.
At the end of the day, you might motorcycle, it is still classed as a vehicle in law, if you like. So it shouldn't be on pavement. It shouldn't be on battlefield. It should be seized. It's as simple as that. Really, it's antisocial vehicle. It could be classified as such. So,
do you seize them?
We do. Yes, we do. Have we seen from recent South Staffordshire? I haven't had anybody inform me we've had one. We've seized it. I don't know if people have seen them about Codsall. I haven't seen one. I don't know if it's a major issue. It's something that hasn't really been reported to me. But we do seize them as an organisation. We do seize them regularly. I know certainly in the city they're obviously more frequent.
Yeah.
Whether it's an issue in Codsall, in the various town villages, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, we do get them around in Bilbrook.
You get them
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and if that's something that you've been aware of, or feedback to the team too, if you see them on them, just take them.
Do you mind if I just say something?
Yes.
We got around our village, trying to form.
What village is that?
Wiggnaston.
Okay.
And they are an absolute, especially we've got the young kids going past, and like kids saying about the elderly population, and they're going to get, somebody's going to get killed.
Yes.
Really serious.
Yeah.
I was just wondering about the actual purchase of the thing that tells them when they're being bought, they can't be used on there.
There's so many suppliers. I wouldn't be able to answer the question. There's that many suppliers. Some may be a bit more responsible and have disclaimers. Some may not be. The reality is you can buy them. You could use it on privately owned land, couldn't you, with permission? And that will be the main selling point. But when you go out onto public roads or public pathways, it becomes a different issue, doesn't it? So I'd like to say some retailers are more responsible than others.
So you do see them. It's a reporting procedure.
Yeah, you could put them online, you could phone 101.
Yeah. Because they're going to be gone by the time
that's the difficulty. But then it comes into information intelligence. Speak to residents. Have you seen a person with a scooter car? Do you know who it is? 9 times out of 10, if it's a village, somebody will know somebody will know somebody. Then we can actually go around and look at challenge that behaviour with parents, really, and you'll find you know, a lot of it comes down to education. Some people have bought it online. It's been delivered 2 days later. I don't see the issue in my 12-year-old being out in the pack because they're just not aware. If they know it's quite innocent, you might argue. So yeah, people feed it in through online with all sorts of things.
Okay, fine, thank you. Okay, everybody?
Yeah.
Right, well, thank you very much. It's thanks, you're doing well, actually. Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you. Okay, so we move on to item 6, which is the work plan for 2024-25, the verbal update from Assistant Director Community Services, Mark Jenkins.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Again, over to yourselves, members. Really, we've got some of the standard agenda items which we'll be picking up across the next financial year. So, Chief Inspector will be back, and Maggie and Mark to give an update on the community safety plan half yearly, how we're doing against those year 2 targets. We'll be bringing back an update on the health inequalities funding to give members an overview of what type of projects have come through, how that's funding has been spent and utilised across those funding streams. For our next meeting, we're looking to bring in a local support group who focus on cancer support as part of the group. Again, that could be something that's replicated and rolled out across other parts of South Staff. So it's an opportunity for members to listen about how that group's operating across locality 4. And again, as we've heard this evening regarding cross-border health, we'll be looking to have a further update on that. Hopefully we get some good feedback from the local PPGs and then look at how we take that forward next. But again, over to yourselves, members, if there's any specific health wellbeing concerns in your communities that you would like to be looked at. Bear in mind that we can't look at GP, NHS issues without approval from county colleagues. But over to you, back to Councillor Chapman to take feedback from members.
Thank you, Chairman. I hear what you're saying, Mark, about county, and I should know because I sit on the health there as well. I just wondered if anyone else in the room, as we sit around this table, is having issues with pharmacies.
In what way?
Drugs, getting the drugs that you need, the prescribed drugs. I don't mean the drugs. I mean prescribed drugs. Sorry. We're finding it very difficult in the one at Great Worley. That's why I'm asking the question. It might be that it's just an isolated pharmacy. They're struggling to get them out. When you go there, they haven't got them. You go back and they still, it's an issue. And I know that it's pretty widespread across the country in getting the drugs into the country from wherever they're coming from.
Okay, so I have a particular
yes.
health.
So I just wondered if it was sort of anybody else in the room, or if it is just an isolated case. If it's one or two, they may ask us at county to look into it ourselves, but it may be that others, well, I have,
Can I ask who?
Well, a lot of the pharmacies are privately owned anyway, aren't they, to be fair? It's Cornwell's.
A different one.
Well, there's a different one in Chesley now, and we're just across the road, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Cornwell's on the precinct in Great Worley. You probably.
So we have a new pharmacy.
Yeah, and there are some issues there, and I just wondered if it was anybody else who got the same issues, or whether it was an isolated case.
I do have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I get held up in as much as I can't always get across the.
Yeah.
But
when you come, yes, but I understand. Yeah.
Boots closing.
Well, yeah. They closed the one in the Sainsbury's closed theirs in locally. They closed their pharmacy, and some boots are closing down. But that's another issue. I'm talking about local pharmacies to the villages, which this is. And obviously, we're an ageing population. You can't always get to the pharmacy, and if you do, you don't want to be going down 2 or 3 times a day for the prescription to get that you actually need. So I just wondered if it's something we could perhaps look at.
Councillor Harrison.
Yes, there is. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the high sea divided shows it's pretty much multifactorial. So some of it's around supply chain issues, some of it, I hate to say it, like a Brexit, because that is impacting on the supply chain, sadly. The pound's devalued as well against foreign currencies, which has made it more expensive for people to import drugs from abroad. There's been a series of scandals with certain drug manufacturers in subcontinents and other places that also affect supply chain issues. There was a voluntary cap put on profit that drug companies could make on some into the NHS, which the drug companies have then said has impacted on their ability to profitability and their ability to supply and innovate, etc., etc. So I think there's been a whole load of issues. As the Perry's experiences, I would say, would be mirrored by my own dealing with family members, etc. So there are a lot of drugs that are fairly generic or usually easy to get to.
Yeah,
you will see lots of these on use. HRT treatments and all sorts of other things becoming short supply. So I think it's multifactorial. It's probably more of a problem when an area is served by a limited number of chemists.
Yes.
Or one chemist, where their own suppliers probably won't any options to go somewhere else. So again, I think it plays into that whole rurality nature of South Wales. It can be particularly problematic if you haven't got options.
Yeah, I mean, I'd sort of back that to a certain extent as well. I mean, like throughout COVID and all the lockdowns, HRT was problematic to get hold of. But we've got certain chemists. So we've got the Lloyd's chemists, obviously one at Codsall, one at Billbrook.
Yes.
And then you've got Morrison. So definitely geographically the closest. And unfortunately Morrison's and the Lloyd's both are the same suppliers. So if one was out of stuff, the other one would be as well. So, but now it's been
that's taken over now. We've just got there's one in Chesley and Hay, and there's one in Great Worley, but they serve an awful lot of people. Do you know what I mean? And there are issues. I just hear people complaining all the time about not being able to get the drugs that they need from the pharmacy, and they're regular users of the same drug, basically. So I just wondered if it was something we might not be able to pick up, Mark, or maybe you could have a conversation with County on it through you, Chairman, or just an isolated case, or maybe we could just have a look at it, please. Thank you. Yeah,
my experience with prescription is we've got one case was on at the tail end and immediately after the pandemic. We did have trouble getting hold of prescription drugs, and family member had to go to another branch of the chemist in Technal over the border. The chemist has now been taken over, the pharmacy has been taken over now by another firm, and we're no longer experiencing trouble. Because I think it is a national issue, clearly, as we've alluded to, it can vary on both the pharmacy and the people working in the pharmacies. I think the particular branch before the takeover, they were struggling to get the pharmacist in. And sometimes, in fact, the pharmacy was closed for that reason.
Right. Thank you. Did you want to say anything, Councillor Nelson?
I actually work for the pharmacy.
Oh, do you?
The deliveries for the pharmacy.
Okay.
So I get it in the neck.
I'm sure you do.
From everybody.
Yes.
But we do have a lot of problems with people think that because they put prescription at the same time as the wife would have done it, or the husband's done it, they think they have to get everything at the same time. And that doesn't always work like that. We do have problems trying to get deliveries through. So for the product to be in order for it actually to go out again. There was 2 pharmacies in our little village, and one left. So they sort of took over, but they had to take over the hours. So 4 days a week, they have to shut at 4 o'clock. Not allowed to open on Saturday and Sunday. There's nobody there anyway, sort of thing, but they're not allowed to open on there. So the problems we have is like the shortage of the times that you can actually get there to actually go and get something. But until 6 o'clock on a Monday, which means that if you're working at that time, late night got and what they. And there's lots of things. And apparently there's been sound about the.
Excuse me. I need to go. Sorry.
About the amount I think the government's given for prescription for
Yes.
So
Right.
well, there's lots of things that's been built up about it, but mainly what we've seen is that you can't actually get things because
It seems to be general. Thank you for that. Okay, Mark. Right, so I'm just going to mention any other business. I've asked for Councillor Megan Barrow to be my vice chair, so that will be announced at the full council. Because I need someone to help cover with the county council as well as district, and Megan's got some social care background, so that would be very helpful for me. And also, Councillor Perry and I have done this, and that's all really. Has anyone else got anything they wish to raise? No. Well, it's been a long meeting, but a very productive meeting. So thank you all very much for coming. Have a safe journey home. Take care.
Thank you.